Hey, everybody. Welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. I'm your host, Roman Zelichenko, and today is episode number 95. I'm really excited to bring you today's guest. Um, we're talking to Catherine Haight, who is the CEO and founder of Lista or Lista.io. Lista.io is a tech product that basically helps immigration lawyers have a really amazing like checklist for different kind of visa categories and different types of filings. It's basically a standard operating procedure kind of platform, and so it helps new lawyers who are trying to get into the industry, into immigration. It helps them really make sure that they're checking all the boxes for different filings. It helps lawyers that are transitioning to, let's say, away from family-based and towards employment-based, to more easily or more quickly master different types of filing. It's a great product. I had the chance to take a look at it, and I really like the way it looked as well. If I was still practicing, I would definitely use it. So I'm excited to talk to Catherine today, hear her story about how she started her own practice, has been running her own practice for over 20 years, and then over time, decided to build something that can help not just her firm be more efficient, but then, can help others be more efficient as well. So I'm your host, Roman Zelichenko. I'm a former immigration attorney myself, now the co-founder and CEO of Laborless, which automates H-1B visa compliance, and also the founder of GMI Rocket, which is a marketing agency, and of course, which brings you this show. So before we bring Catherine in, I do want to say thank you to our main sponsor for this episode, Lex Reception. So Lex Reception is a legal intake, reception, and client support service. And they provide call answering and messaging in real time. They help schedule appointments, and they provide immigration law firm clients with 24/7 legal answering specialists. So if you're an immigration law firm and you get clients that call you, or prospects that call you 24/7, you don't have to worry about missing that phone call or that message, because Lex Reception answers that for you. They can also help you proactively reach out to prospective clients if they've, let's say, filled out a form on your website. And of course, they have a tech solution, and so they integrate with Clio, Practice Panther, LawPay, and a lot of other companies to help streamline that process for you. So for GMI Rocket Show listeners, Lex Reception offers $250 off your first month of service with them. There's a link to that in the show notes, or just reach out to them and say you heard about them on the GMI Rocket Show. All right. So with that very long introduction, Catherine, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to have this conversation, and looking forward to sharing the story of Lista with our audience.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So, okay, you're kind of, if I could go back in time, I honestly would probably still practice immigration law and then think about starting Laborless on the side. Sometimes I talk to folks who ask me, what should I do? I'm still working. I have this idea, and this is not new advice. I say, hold on to your job or your business or whatever for as long as you can, because the paycheck helps, especially if you're not looking for funding. So I want to talk a little bit about how you got into immigration law, how or why you broke off and started your own practice, over 20 years ago. And then of course, how you got to build Lista. But first I want to talk about, you, Catherine, the person. We talked a little bit about this before we started. Your last name, Haight Ashbury. Your family's, I guess, been in America for a very long time, and I think that's actually interesting because you practice immigration law. You're helping people literally come to America and start their kind of their family's journey in this country. Do you know where your family kind of came from, if anywhere, or maybe you have Native American blood? Do you know that about you?
Interesting. Yeah, a little. Both sides of my family came in the 1800s, kind of mid 1800s. My dad from Western Europe. My mom's side of the family from France, and came up to New Orleans and up the Mississippi, and we're actually, my mom's side of the family were the first Jews in Montana to put a homestead down and live in Helena, Montana. My dad's side of the family immigrated to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I lived until I was 9. So people oftentimes think I'm from Chicago or Milwaukee, or Wisconsin. And so we do have those kind of family trees, really interesting. And I'll say, you know, having toured the Statue of Liberty and Angel Island up in San Francisco, and thinking about what it would be like to take, you know, a big clipper ship across the Atlantic in the
Yeah.
1800s. And it just blows my mind that that's somebody on a little, you know, tree of family tree, that what they would have gone through is mind blowing. Now it's a, you know, air flight over, still complicated, but mind blowing to think about immigrants in the 1800s.
Totally. I mean, honestly, even the early 1900s, you know, at the turn of the century, I feel like it was still a tough journey. You know, airplane flights were different. I mean, yeah, now it feels so much easier. Still stressful. I think about that too. You know, coming over to Ellis Island with just sick passengers sometimes, and how long it takes. And honestly, I've also never been on a cruise. The only large ship I've ever taken was from Germany up into Sweden. There's like you take a train, and the train boards a big ship, and the ship crosses. I actually don't know what that body of water is off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I mean, I'll never forget stepping off of the train inside of a ship. You know, and I know they're that big conceptually. I've just never, you know, been on a cruise or
Yes,
something.
yes. I
And
would say
so,
fun. Go ahead, go ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, fun fact, my parents met on the Queen Mary. So there you go. Now that was
No
going to
way.
Europe. My dad
Okay.
took tours through. My mom was on his tour, and they fell in love. Got married like, you know, 6 months later after the cruise. So just funny to hear about that. And that would have been in, you know, I don't know when that was, the early 1950s.
Mhm.
And so totally, you know, that's a different type. That's going the other way. But
Yeah.
coming in and just what to feel like for a, you know, a 22-year-old by themselves with their family back in their home country, and just arriving
Yep.
here and winging it. And you know what? The reality is, even on a plane today, the kids who are coming across on an F1 to go to school in a foreign country where they don't speak the language perfectly and try and get a bachelor's degree. I mean, I'm in awe of these people who do that.
That's right. Because I think it's easy to say, well, oh, they have access to so much information on their phone from their home country. They could learn the language. But the reality is, even though there are more resources, life has gotten much more complex. I feel like at that time, you arrived, you came up to a shop, and you said, you know, I'm here to work. And they're like, great, start tomorrow. Now you have to file your I-9, and you have to, you know, there's like, so I think proportionally things have gotten more complicated, even though it is quote unquote maybe a little bit easier than it was 150 years ago to come to, let's say, America or immigrate anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So you grew up, you know, kind of in the Midwest and moved over um,
Yeah, I came into
to
LA,
California
Pasadena at 9. Yeah.
at
So,
9.
yeah.
So did you? And you know, I grew up on the East Coast, so we're kind of this is an East Coast West Coast rivalry here. Um, So did you, as you kind of were going up through school, you know, I'm curious because you did eventually break off and start your own practice. Were you kind of an entrepreneurial, you know, young person, or were you, you know, studious? Maybe you always wanted to go to law school, or maybe not, but it requires a certain type of, you sit down, you read, you memorize, you take tests. Were you more of that, or were you more of like selling lemonade and kind of business
Yeah.
person?
We sold worms in Milwaukee. One rainy day, we got a bunch of worms and sold them to all the people who were going to go to Lake Michigan and fish.
There you
That was
go.
about the extent of my entrepreneurship. So no, I went to college thinking you get a bachelor's degree, you work for the man, and you get a pension, and then you retire, and you know you buy a house that's either with help from your parents or from, you know, you save it up. So I was totally in that a completely different mindset. And I remember when I graduated from college and saying, I said to my dad, I'm kind of thinking about law school. He was a lawyer. And he said, well, you got to go right after your bachelor's degree. You can't just be wasting time in between. And I was like, but I didn't want to. So I at that point wasn't ready to go back to school, having been in school, my whole life. And so I went off and worked for a few years, went into cable television, believe it or not, took a cable television
Wow.
class in the 80s, and then decided I want to do cable TV. Came back to LA because by then I'd gone to San Diego, Berkeley, then out to New York. And I came back to LA to work in cable television, got a job in cable television, and then realized over time that there weren't any attorneys that really understood that business and that industry. So I went to law school at Southwestern here in LA, night school. So it took me 4 years to go through, worked all day, and then went to school from 6 to 10 at night. There's a whole section of like movies and culture that I missed during that time in law school. And then ended up at a big national law firm that does corporate law and ready to do telecommunications and teaches people what cable TV was all about. This would have been in the early 90s. And stumbled into immigration. It was funny, there wasn't a case when I first started at right out of law school. There wasn't a case that involved telecommunications. And I sat at a morning attorney meeting in this beautiful big conference room, sat next to an immigration attorney. His name is Angelo Pepparelli, for those people who know him, love him dearly. He's still one of my best friends. And he was talking about immigration, and we just chit-chatted, and I thought, ugh, who would ever want to do immigration? That sounds so boring, But then by the end of this meeting, he said, listen, I have an attorney going out on maternity leave for 3 months. Would you mind filling in? And I was brand new, this big law firm, and this was his partner asking me this, and I was like, sure. And he sat down with me then and taught me all about immigration. I was like, I just have to suffer through these 3 months and get out of here. And as Angelo says, the bug bit me, and I started going, wow, this is really interesting. And all of this corporate stuff is really interesting. And the affiliation between the companies and whether or not something's a specialty occupation. And it was just all super interesting to me. And I just love the law. You could have dumped me into anywhere. I just love legal analysis and looking at words and deciphering them and everything else. And so I stuck it out, and I worked with him, Angelo, and then ended up having an amazing set of mentors, which I'd love to talk to you about. But I did half immigration and half construction law, waiting for these telecommunication cases to come. And then after 2 years, you got to pick which way you're going to go. And I thought, I'll do immigration. And then ended up in this group of amazing attorneys and learned immigration. I was there for, I guess, 7 years. So.
Wow. That's amazing. And at that time, immigration law wasn't nearly, especially corporate, wasn't nearly as popular, I guess. I mean, even the firms that are we are the biggest firms today at that time were small, right? And I remember maybe it was the conversation I had with Angelo Pepparelli, and for anyone who wants to go back, I had him on the show as well a couple of years ago. Yeah, so it was really wonderful. And he's a great guy.
Amazing.
And so and he spoke about how I think it was that conversation talking about how it was kind of pseudo international law. People kind of almost didn't know how to name it, type of thing. We take for granted that now there are, AILA is so big now, we have so many members, et cetera. It really was a lot more of a fringe group of attorneys back then. So it's a really cool time to start. And I can imagine how there was a lot of intersectionality between immigration law and other things that firms worked at. So okay, so you worked at in a corporate environment for a number of years. You eventually, of course, broke off on your own to start your law practice. So, and how did you feel confident enough to do that? And especially because it sounds like you were the type of person who said, bachelor's degree, get a job, work for the man, quote unquote, that yes, you sold worms, right, at some point. So you had a little bit in you, but I guess what was your thought process around then, that pushed you to really branch off on your own?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, when I left the big corporate law firm, I joined a national immigration law firm, and then And I think just I realized that wasn't my gig, was to just kind of be part of many doing things in a way. It's hard to explain, but I wanted to focus on the legal analysis, and I felt, and I do still feel, that some of the the immigration law firms, all they think about is getting the case filed, and I wanted to think about the legal issues and all of that. And so I actually went to the law firm and said, I want to go off on my own. Is there a project that you can give me? I'd love to do it. Work on that for 6 months as I'm building up my firm. And they said yes, and they had me work on a bunch of RFEs for a particular client, on ORs or something like that. And then that helped me build my practice. Started with just me. I would say within a few weeks, I got a legal assistant, and then little by little grew from there. Started off at a one of those Regis type places, so it was easy to grow. And I have to say, I was always very process oriented. So it's not to say that I believe in process, but I believe in process with the legal analysis that goes with it. And so I think at that point I had a vision of how I could practice law, merging that concept of being really clear and purposeful on process and how to do things, so that you can think and analyze the issues and prepare a case strategy without the nuisance of the process.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times you think about how much time is spent on administrative tasks, follow-ups, email back and forth, and then you're kind of tired. And by the time you're ready to do the thing that you went to law school to do, that you love to do,
Yes.
legal analysis or the consultation with a client,
Yes.
that human interaction, you don't have time, you're exhausted, etc. So yeah, I think a lot of people do have maybe a misconception that technologists want to, especially in the legal space, want to sort of replace the legal profession with robots effectively. But I think, especially technology that's built by attorneys, it's actually the complete opposite. We want to leverage technology to automate the things that don't require our legal minds, so that we can really focus, so we could be the kind of lawyer we imagine we would be in law school, because you leave law school and you're like, wait a minute, I was doing all this really interesting analysis and arguing, and now I do that once a month. The rest of the time is follow-up emails and double checking forms, and are there typos? Like, important work, yes, but not sort of legal work.
Exactly. But proofing, and is the passport number correct? Because if it's wrong, someone's going to get stuck in Guangzhou, China. And it's got to be done, but that's what needs to be automated. The part that you need the lawyer for is, if I do this H-1B this way, is it going to affect the perm in 3 years from now, or whatever, or the beginning of a perm case? If I do this, are we going to get the kid before they age out, or what's USCIS going to do at the I-140 stage? That's the fun, interesting, cool part, and the consultations with people. Can you meet the standard for O1A or whatever it is, and analyzing that? That's fun. That's fabulous. And then of course the successes and the approvals. We just got a green card approved for a DACA recipient who's been here since he was 10. He's now 39. And
wow,
those are the best. I mean, great getting in the superstar baseball player, great getting in the tech worker, but a DACA, a dreamer, that's the best.
yeah. Congratulations. That's fantastic. Yeah, definitely. Some of my best memories from when I was practicing was just spending probably too much time on the phone with clients, or with beneficiaries. But I loved it. I wanted to talk to them, and I wanted to make sure that when we get off the phone, they at least have a lowered level of stress, if not feel good. That was always my goal. And I will spend the extra 30 minutes just, rephrasing something, or asking you again, or just restating, my hope for, like, to me, that was always the thing. Okay. So you started your practice. It's by the way, now WeWork is taken for granted, but Regis at the time, which is kind of a predecessor to WeWork, similar type of concept. So you were, I don't know if you knew this or not, or if you thought about it, but you were kind of operating like a startup. I actually, just, if I can take a moment to appreciate it in a way, you start, first of all, kudos to your firm, that didn't say, oh, get out of here, you're quitting, but rather it sounds like they supported you. They were willing to give you some part-time work, so that you can kind of get your both of your feet on the ground as you got started. So that was sort of a really smart way to get started with a new business, with a law practice. Try to get some almost part-time work from other places. You were flexible with your work arrangement. You didn't rent an office for your firm, for 2 years. You kind of were in this flexible Regis space, and you got help right away. So I think it's really smart for any business owner, whether a law firm, a tech company, a service, any other service company, to think about just doing the bare minimum one step at a time, so you don't lock yourself into something that's way over your head in the beginning.
Yep.
You work your way up to an office. Now you're in an office. You're not in a Regis, I presume.
That's right.
But you work your way up there. Yeah.
I think we grew out of that in like 6 years or 8 years or something.
But that's still a considerable amount of time, right? I mean, that's still something that is that took you a while to get to. So as you're going through that process of, I guess, growing your practice, how did you think about? I guess you were solo initially. How did you think about growth? How did you think about marketing that yourself? Then how did you think about getting from part-time work from your old firm to starting to get your own clients to getting enough work to maybe starting to hire full-time staff? How did you go about that, 20 years ago?
I knew nothing about anything. I just worked hard and, I would say marketing, I didn't even really understand it. I kind of came from a time when you weren't allowed to market as an attorney. And so it's even, now it's still like, oh, we get to, advertise on TV. That just seems amazing to me. And so I, at that point, it really was good work for good attorneys who appreciated my work. In other words, the client attorneys, general counsel, or HR, directors and those types of people, and making sure that I was really working for their corporate entity or team or whatever it was, and addressing their concerns and being successful with their employees. And so, it's something I think just out there in the law practice, one, attorney or HR director goes to a different company, and the minute they get there, they call you and you're like, yes. And so it was really more that and referrals from folks that grew the practice from there. So, and it's funny, sorry, Angelo, I hope he watches this sometime, because he used to always say, best way to market is do good work. And that was in my head, and it worked.
Did you were you involved in AILA back then?
Oh yeah, I got involved in AILA very early. I'm definitely an AILA baby. Started speaking, and to some extent, I think giving a seminar at an AILA conference can certainly provide visibility for you. But I would say even now, I might get a little bit of work from AILA, but it really is more that participating in those types of presentations and articles and all of that, which I started in the early 90s, it helps you learn the law. And so I love that kind of opportunity where for, a couple of weeks before the seminar, you prep and you go, oh yeah, I forgot about that regulation. So my participation in AILA has helped me as an attorney by leaps and bounds. Marketing, probably a tad, but it's really more the family and the community of AILA that has been amazing, both for my practice, and I hope I've added a little bit into others within the AILA community to help and mentor them as well.
And when you're prepping for a presentation, you actually learn how to synthesize the law and kind of explain it in a simple way. And so that can be really beneficial if you're having a call with, especially in your case, general counsel or CEO of a smaller company. They want to know something about the different visa types that are going to be relevant to their employees, but they are not trying to become lawyers. So you have to know how to synthesize information and explain it to them.
Yep.
So I kind of a shout out to AILA because I think a lot of immigration lawyers, especially younger ones, um, don't jump onto the opportunity right away, you
Oh,
know?
they
And
should. I
so,
can't
and I
imagine.
always recommend it. Yeah. Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly. So, okay, so you're running your practice. It's going well. At what point, or maybe were you always starting to think about the role of, just generally speaking, the role of technology in your practice?
Yeah.
Was this something you always implemented from day one, or did you kind of run up against this paperwork? Let me go see what's out there. What was your relationship with technology as a
Yeah.
practitioner?
I definitely wanted technology and worked to get one of the early case management systems in place when it was very, those were few and far between back in 2002. But I knew I needed a immigration law case database. So I got one of those, and I was always on that one doing things, making suggestions to the vendor, add this, finding ways around problems in the database. I actually worked on some customizations, paid someone in India to do the customizations, and built it up and did a lot where, wherever we could, we built onto this already set database. And as far as other things, yeah, I mean, Lorna DeBono, my partner, loved spreadsheets. So she was always, zipping out analysis on that. And then we would take that and find a way to leverage it. Excel isn't necessarily technology, but we were always into that. And also getting the best computer system as possible that had the highest security as possible, all of that. And I'm definitely one where when something new comes out, and whether it's a database or Adobe or Office 365, I want the next version as quickly as
Mm.
possible rather than waiting for 4 or 5 versions to come out and then getting it. I always wanted to get it right away. It just made it easier to adapt. And so I guess I was, really always thinking in terms of tech. I will tell you one thing that I was slow to get onto, but have done now, is going paperless, because I'd
Mm.
grown up in a paper world and I wanted to review things in paper. And so we started digitizing everything, in the mid-teens. But I still wanted paper for a long time, but got over that in probably 2020. And so we've completely gone digital, although I must admit I occasionally print something out to read it because I want to redline it, and it's just kind of easier for me to do than to do on an Adobe PDF.
Certainly. I want to dig into that a little bit because I find that the mindset, the mentality that you have is really important. A lot of folks, I would say immigration lawyers, but honestly, beyond immigration lawyers, a lot of professionals or business owners, they're nervous to explore new technology because number one, it takes time
Yeah,
away from your work. And number two, especially if you have to sign up for the newest thing and whatnot, it may not work out. And
yeah,
so you may have to spend time and energy and money and then eventually go back to whatever you were using because this didn't work. And because they focus on that fear, they just don't move forward with it at all. So I'm curious from your perspective, you built your own practice. I mean, let's be honest, any time and or money you spend is coming out of your pocket and it's coming out of your calendar, right? In terms of
yeah.
testing out new tools, et cetera.
Time and money.
What made you want to do that rather than say, I don't want to risk it for now? Why did you go towards that?
It probably was during that time, I mean, in starting my own firm, that I started to get the entrepreneur mentality in, of being willing to take risk, knowing the payout at the other side. And I'm not talking about money, but then being able to have a business and a career that I enjoyed. And so I think that I started realizing that. And although I don't like to be risky with my cases, I just felt with my life and my career, let's take a shot, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll pivot in a different way and find something else. And that's okay. And so it was I don't know. I didn't watch Shark Tank or anything back in those days. I don't
Yeah.
know what made me realize that there was more to life than getting a bachelor's degree and working for the man.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think this is what I try to kind of convey when I talk to attorneys. Sometimes this is even on a call with a prospect for laborless. Like they're clearly showing interest in the product, but they're still hesitant. They
Mm,
cross some line because we're on the phone. I'm sure
mm,
maybe this happens with you as well with Lisa, but they're hesitant because there's money involved. I had someone say, "Do you have a free trial?" And I was like, "It's a compliance tool. I can't give you a free trial. You either sign up and you use it or you can't." We have lower price
yeah,
features, start off with something small, but that hesitation I think is sits with a lot of people.
yeah.
And I understand it. I always I admire, and I'm not a practitioner anymore, so I can't sit on my high horse and say, well, look at what I've done, because I don't run a practice. That's why I love digging into this with somebody like you, because you ran your own practice, but and the bottom line was very important to you, but then you also invested in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so, and I think, and there were fits and starts. So I think we did try a couple of things that didn't work out. It wasn't tens of thousands of dollars to do it, but let's try this. Okay, that doesn't work. Let's try that. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, here now we found the right fit for what we need to do. Um, and so it's ability and willingness to take a risk and know that there's going to be some failures along the way, and that's okay. That's part of it. That's just part of the whole thing, and you're going to have problems along the way, and you just work through them and stick with it, and it's doable.
Did you budget for, a technology spend, or did you kind of take it as it came, depending on what you thought was
I have
necessary?
to be honest, I took it as it came. I
Mhm.
knew if we needed something, and I would say with everything, whenever I like try to find something, a new technology, and I will look at the prices, but that's so um, less important than the functionality and the idea that, I'll save whatever, $20 a month by going with one versus the other. When you think about it, it makes no sense if you're billing out X thousands of dollars for a case. And so that, to me, it's the utility and the functionality that's most critical. How much something cost might be, it's a consideration, but it's not the end all.
Mhm. Yeah. Would you recommend other attorneys maybe try to budget for it? Do you think that's
Oh, I
something
think
that can
now I
help?
think budgeting
Yeah.
is really
Yeah.
important, and we actually now, as time has gone on, we budget, and actually I work with a tech company that is great about budgeting, and we will figure out in no October, November, what are we going to do next year? We need a couple new computer upgrades. We should upgrade this
Mm.
platform or that application, and they're just great. I just partnered with a great vendor who does all, helps me with that. And we have meetings with my accounts manager and set up what is the budget. And every once in a while, something happens and you got to go over budget because something happens in June that you weren't expecting. And okay,
Mm.
you got to take that out of the extra cash on hand. And, again, that happens.
That's the roller coaster of running your own business.
Yep. There's a lot
Um,
to it.
So I want to take a quick pause, and I think this actually is such a perfect opportunity to thank the second sponsor of this episode, which is DocketWise. Speak of the devil, we're talking about technology and automation. So for folks who do not know, who are listening or watching, DocketWise is an all-in-one immigration case management platform. They provide some of the best-in-class immigration form processes out there, super customizable questionnaires. They actually started, with really leading with questionnaires, immigration questionnaires, and moved to build a broader case management system. They integrate with a lot of different platforms, and they have really strong customer service as well. Actually, I'm part of some Facebook groups, and their co-founder is constantly replying to questions there. I was just reading it yesterday, and it doesn't happen often, so I do appreciate that about them. And one of the things that I personally like about DocketWise, they support shows like this. They support great content for the immigration industry. I'm grateful to them, and they have a great blog. They just launched a podcast. I think they put a lot of effort into supporting the immigration industry. So I'm grateful to have them as a support of the show. So check out DocketWise. DocketWise.com is the website. There's also a link in the show notes as well if you want to check out their case management platform. Okay. So I want to transition this conversation, Catherine, to talk about how this idea of Lista came about. So you're growing your practice, you're building out your team. You know, you've always had this sort of lean towards technology for your firm. It's one thing to, you know, be open to trying new technology. It's another thing to try to build something of your own. So I know that, you know, Lista, I guess it kind of started as your own internal thing, right? Where you said, okay, you're going to invest time, money, and energy to build something that can, at worst case scenario, it'll make your team more efficient. Can you talk a little bit about when that thought process or when that thought came to you to, you know, build what is now Lista?
Yeah. I was always into processes and checklists, and as the case database systems got more sophisticated that were out there for immigration law firms, there were these workflows, and so you could work through the workflows, and they were great because they would send an automated email and this and that, but none of them were addressing the legal steps that you have to go through for a case, not the administrative steps. Where are the legal steps? And so I had all these processes that were on Word docs on my server. And so when a new attorney or paralegal came in, they would go through extensive training, but then after that would then have these Word docs to use, how to prepare an OR or an O1 or a P1 or a PERM or whatever it was. And then over time, I just realized that a Word doc, it just doesn't work. We need to have it up on a platform where we can look at it at any time, and someone then has the flexibility to either take vacation or get sick, and we don't have to freak out because we don't know where they are in a case. And we could just go up and see what happened when and all of that. And so I started realizing I really need this to not just be on Word documents, but on a platform that is functional and can, and that is interactive. And so actually my accounts manager and I started every Saturday for a couple of years working on this and thinking it through and devising it. And then hired a software development company who the president of that company ended up coming in as a partner on this venture, and building out something that is taking a static piece of paper that sits, you know, whether it's on a server or on someone's desk, and turn it into a platform with the legal steps to do a case. And when I say legal steps, you know, what am I talking about? The H-1B, you know, a regular workflow for an H-1B might be prepare the case, file the case, get the approval. Mine is like, analyze whether or not it's a specialty occupation under 214.2 H3 or what, you know, check out the ONET and see if you can find an ONET SOC code that matches, do the analysis of required wage under the H-1B regs, and, you know, what is the regulation and what is required. It's not just the prevailing, it's actual versus prevailing and everything else. And so it was something that I had built for, you know, many years, over 15 years, the steps, always improving them at any point, and giving my staff the encouragement to always make things better and improve when steps are done or the links or anything else. And as we were building it, you know, I was like, oh, this is going to be so great. It's going to make things so much easier. We did think about, I bet there's other attorneys, people out there that could also use this platform. But we kept it internal and worked through it and got the bugs out and just kept working. What can we do here? What can we do there? Keeping in mind, it's a piece of a case management system. I do think I blew it for not building my own, you know, case management system in 2002 or during, you know, in the early aughts, as they say.
Yeah.
But that ship has sailed. So this is just a missing piece. And what I then realized is it could actually be used with any case database or without one. It's not as robust. It doesn't hold a passport number or anything like that, but it does tell an attorney what you need to do and think about along the way. And if these steps are followed, the likelihood of screwing up and finding out the day before filing that somebody has kids that you didn't do the I-539 for lessened. And so it's really, for me, was how can we do this so we're reducing errors, making it easier to do a case and easier then to go to the part of our jobs that we like the best, which is the legal analysis.
Yeah, I think, I love the philosophy of, I've thought about the case management piece myself, but I love the idea of seeing what's out there and plugging holes. We don't, the more a company or a product tries to be everything for everyone. And I know that we're in the immigration space. So if we zoom out, someone would say, well, this is already specialized software. You're immigration lawyers, right? So anything for immigration lawyers is specialized. But when you zoom into our industry, you realize that, a case management system, for example, is really amazing at a lot of different things. Making sure administrative steps are being followed, holding on to, securely uploading and holding on to documents and data, secure communication, billing, etc. But then there are small things that, it just they don't do or they don't want to do or whatever. And I think I love that, because for me, that's how the idea for Laborless came about. And, I feel like with Lista, you're supplementing the different platforms that are out there in a way that's great. Honestly, from a sales perspective, right? You don't have to get people off of whatever they're using today. People spend a lot of time and energy building their, tech stack, if you will. They have a really nice workflow, whatever tool they use. And, it's tough. And sometimes it doesn't, you don't need to come in and sell them on a new tool, right, to replace their current one.
Existing, yeah, yes.
Right, and it's a challenge. Like migrating data is a challenge. All of these things are friction. But here you're saying, look, let me come in and give you something that'll make your practice flow better, right? It'll supplement whatever you're doing. Absolutely. If you're hiring new staff, forget about it. This will make your training so much easier. Exactly. And that's something that, most case management platforms, to my knowledge, they don't really, it's not their focus, and that's okay. That's okay. So I love that. I love that philosophy. What? Don't worry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, don't worry about the ship sailing. I think you built your own, yacht here, your small ship.
Yeah, I was going to say that no matter what case database friends and colleagues use, we come in the morning, we open up, you open up Chrome and you open up your database and you open up 365 in Word, and then we just open up Lista. And so we just have that up there and can check things off, and as we're doing a case, and it's just one more application that helps you in your job, just like all of the other little buttons at the bottom of our computers.
Exactly. So what's the process been like for you once you got Lisa to a place where it was obviously working for your firm and it was helping your team? What was the process for you to then, quote unquote, bring it to market? Did you go to your colleagues and say, look, I built this thing, it's not public yet, but let me know? Or did you, put out a website and, say, have at it? How did that process go for you?
Yeah, it was actually kind of both, but it was mainly talking to friends and colleagues, having them test it out, get their feedback, see what they think. I mean, I'd already had the feedback from my staff and my attorneys and paralegals who can then say, "Ooh, this is weird," or "this is a bug," or whatever. But I also just wanted others to see it. So last spring, friends and family, AILA friends would jump on and check it out and give me feedback, generally all positive. And then we decided, okay, September, we're going to start kind of getting it out there. Actually, I think it was last June or July, I spoke at an AILA paralegals conference and just kind of introduced it. I had a little 4-minute gig just to introduce it. And so then we got more users in from that presentation. And then in September, really kind of started more, okay, now we're really gonna get it up and going. Spoke at a couple more conferences, started really just kind of getting the word out, got our website up, did a little bit of SEO, that I didn't think was great. I mean, it just didn't turn out to be successful. And so started realizing that, it's really going to be with bar associations, AILA and other bar associations, where we're going to be focused on advertising. So we're still really in the launch mode, in the sense of, bringing it out for people to use. But we've been really excited because we've been getting a lot of customers and referrals, and it's taking off. And so it's very exciting and fun for us to see that the fruits of our labor are coming forward now. And it's just, it's been great.
What do you think is the kind of optimal use case? Do you think it's an immigration lawyer that, let's say, has been doing humanitarian cases and wants to dabble in some employment-based cases? Is it somebody who's, 1 or 2 years out of law school, either starting their own practice or joining a firm as a training tool? I mean, do you have a preferred kind of ideal client, or is it sort of a mix of both or others?
It's actually a mix of everything at this point. It's interesting because I think I initially thought this is going to be great for the newer attorneys who want to do employment-based. I mean, how to do a perm. How could you, figure that out? That would be crazy, but now having done thousands of perms, it's like, okay, you do this, 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 I can tell someone. So I think newer attorneys for sure, but also it's been interesting because a couple of AILA friends have said, I do family-based, but, someone wanted me to do a TN, and I really wanted to do that work for this client. And so I can go on to Lista, and I'm an immigration attorney. I've been doing immigration law for 20 years, even though it's in the family practice. I can figure out, based on this template, how to do a TN now. And so it's been interesting to see that it is that customers include people in other practice areas that either want to dabble to get into a new area or want to do a one-off case and don't want to refer it out. It's for a client who they love. For whatever reason, they want to keep that case in-house, and they will feel comfortable moving forward using one of our templates.
Yeah, I almost feel like, as a training tool and or business development tool, depending on the type of client, it's a brilliant move. And I've come across a number of attorneys actually recently who have, maybe focused on asylum or U visas, things like that. Mm-hmm. And maybe they had a case, perhaps it was even a prior client or somebody who said, hey, I have someone, who needs an H-1B. They may not know the difference. You're their immigration lawyer. That's what they know. Mm-hmm. And then you don't want to turn like you said, you don't want to turn that business away. And a lot of folks obviously look at mentors and maybe calling you and saying, hey, Catherine, can we co-counsel? I'll learn from you. But this is a kind of way of, this is a way for you to sort of scale Catherine Haight's brain, like your mentor. You can only mentor so many people because there's only so many hours in the day. This is basically saying, here, let me almost be your mentor and your guide through this software.
Yes, and it's definitely less expensive than hiring me hourly to do it. So go at it. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I can't even imagine being a young attorney and trying to figure out, the complex world of immigration law. And I will say that Lista is focused on employment-based, although we did build the platform in a way that we could in the future add, whether it's other types of immigration law or other types of law, after finding someone with the knowledge base to set up everything in a way that is, I won't get anybody in a malpractice or something, but the how-to in a given kind of case. I'll also say I think it's easier in the employment-based area than in asylum area, to follow a case and what to do. Perms take forever, but an H-1B and L, an E3 and O, you can tackle in a number of weeks to get it out the door. And so just, I think it fits well with the employment-based practice, but we will be expanding I'm sure at some point in the future to other types of immigration practices.
And do you think there's an opportunity, you kind of alluded to it, to go beyond immigration? My question to you is going to be, what do you think is the future? Is this, something that stays within the industry? Is it something that can go into other practice areas? Can it go beyond the law? Can you use, I don't know if you've read, there was like an article, or you know what, I'm going to butcher this, so I won't even try. But there was some doctor, I believe, maybe it was a nurse, that did research and said that when given checklists in hospitals, the number of, the level of hospital infection and or mortality went down dramatically, because people weren't all over the place. They said, okay, did I do this? Did I check that? Did I clean this? And then suddenly the experience of being in a hospital was much, much better in terms of survival rate,
Right.
So
Yes.
yeah, quite literally. So like, do you see this as, almost something that can scale to other industries,
Yeah.
accountants, doctors? Yeah.
Definitely for accountants of, how to do file a tax return or something like that. It's, again, what are the issues, the financial issues you want to analyze. And I'm a big believer in checklists, like you just said about hospitals. And the seasoned doctors were like, hey, I don't need a checklist, I know how to perform surgery. But they cut off the wrong arm or whatever it is. And it's fun now, going into the doctor's office now and realizing the checklists that they have. It's really funny. And you go in for something and they put something around your wrist, and then they check with you, are you this person? Because they don't want to give the wrong tag to the wrong person and stuff. And another place was in air flights, and having pilots use checklists before starting a flight. And they actually still walk around the plane with their checklist. Now it's on an iPad or something, of checking all of these things. And what it did was reduce airplane crashes and fatalities. And so, again, pilots who go, oh, that's beyond me. I know how to do all of that. Once they started being required to use checklists, fatalities went down and crashes went down. And so, we're not at that level, but certainly, oh my God, you get an RFE and go, I can't believe I forgot to include that or analyze that or whatever. All of it, generally that goes to the wayside, because you've thought through everything up front to make sure you don't make the wrong move that's going to mean a denial for your client.
Yeah, absolutely. And, yes, it's not life or death immigration work, but honestly, if it's the difference between someone being able to keep their U.S. job or have to go home or not come here at all, I mean, it's as close as you can get. This immigration changes people's lives. And I think folks forget, and I say this coming from the employment side, just because, yes, asylum and, refugee work, U visas, VAWA, et cetera, those are all, the humanitarian cases really are some of the most challenging emotionally.
Yeah.
But the impact that you can have on a family's life by getting someone their H-1B could be just as revolutionary. They could be someone who grew up poor in some part of the world. They happen to go to college. They're really smart. They got their degree in, let's just say, engineering, and they got this job at Google or wherever, and wow, like, you think about their childhood and they tell you they grew up in a small town, and, and it's just, that's life-changing for them. It's life-changing. And so I do think that we have to take this as seriously,
Yes.
as surgeons, et cetera, because this is the thing that we're paid to do. And it impacts people's lives directly.
And it's really in some ways analogous to a surgeon, in the sense of, if you use the wrong, I don't know what, antibiotic or something. And with us, a comma in the wrong place on a perm form, and after a year you get audited, and then you get supervised recruitment, and then you get a denial, and 3 years down the road your foreign national is stuck. And it's like, it's horrible. And so, again, using checklists to minimize those. That's not to say every case is perfectly prepared or anything, but to minimize those horrible things that you go, oh, I can't believe I didn't realize there's only 28 days in February, so I counted the posting days wrong or whatever. We have 29 days this month, which is great. But anyways, it really does make a difference, and it's not only in the foreign nationals' life; it's in the lives of the people that they work with. It's their family. It's their kid on the soccer team at 6 years old or whatever. To then, like, no, now you have to leave because of a stupid mistake and go home to your, home country, even though you've built a life here, it's a tragedy, absolute tragedy.
Yep. Amen. I always share that I had a very good friend in college who was on H-1B, and his company didn't file a perm in time, and nobody was really controlling the whole thing, so he had to go back to his home country. And I get to visit this friend in his home country all the time, so for me, it's a reason to travel. But I think that's the silver lining. I do think it was a really big bummer at the time. So okay, I want to be conscious of your time. This has been such a cool story. I kind of want to end this with a question to you. Kind of understanding where you've been, and you really started your own business 20 plus years ago. You've built that up. You've built up those entrepreneurial muscles, as you said. Had this idea for Lista that you kind of built for yourself, but obviously it's something that can impact the immigration industry and beyond. What's where you are today, right? Where you kind of recently launched Lista, you're going through this sort of almost sales and marketing process with, speaking about it, presenting about it, obviously having colleagues try it and word of mouth. What is the advice that is currently top of mind for you, that you're kind of leveraging where you are today? I think, and I asked this question because I think different advice hits us at different times of our career, and so there's some advice that I'm currently to yourself. What are you currently using to push yourself and your business forward at this moment?
Yeah, stick with it. Keep my eyes on the goal, which is to improve my service and my firm service, and to help and mentor other attorneys. And I say mentor loosely because some of them know way more than I do, but to share a tool that's a fabulous tool with others. And so I think it's really, just I believe in the cause. I believe in immigration into the United States and diversity. And so I think it's thinking about, what is your purpose? And so purpose is getting diversity into the United States. That's key. Purpose is helping people. And so whether it's the foreign nationals or colleagues and attorneys and my staff, helping them by making things easier. And so I think in all of that, that's really the driving part of all of this, is knowing, I guess it's the whole feeling. You feel good when you do good for others. And so I think, and don't give up. I guess this advice is don't give up. Do good work, because that's what's going to get you more clients too. Right. And on technology, embrace it. I mean, come on, please, we have to. Yeah. And how great it is that we live in a time that's not, paper writing of, invoices and stuff, and the old calculators. Yes, technology, that's going to help us.
Agreed. And you know what? I think coming from someone like you, who, again, you're still running and growing your practice, means a lot, because you're not just saying that to sell software, you're saying it because you live it on a daily basis. So yes. I think that's really powerful. So Catherine, the website for Lista is lista.io, just right for folks who are listening. Yep. I think the information is on there in terms of what's available, pricing, etc. So I encourage immigration lawyers who are listening to check it out. At least, maybe it'll help you with your current practice. Maybe you've done a few H-1Bs and you want to get better at it, and you want to feel confident, or O1s or Ls or whatever, the roster that you have, which it sounds like is going to continue to grow.
That's right.
So I definitely encourage folks to to reach out through the website and check it out. Catherine, thank you so much. It's been so fun and a pleasure to really share your story and Lisa's story, and appreciate your time, and hopefully surely see you at the next AILA conference.
For sure. Excellent. Thanks so much, Roman.
Cool. Thank you, Catherine. Sometimes, again, I talk to folks like Catherine and I just wish I was still practicing and doing the thing while building a tech product. So I love that discussion. Thank you, everybody who has tuned in to watch and to listen. I really appreciate it. Again, check out lisa.io to learn more about what the product does and see if it works for you. And I took a look at Catherine and I went through kind of a demo, and it looks really great. It's a nice looking tool. It's really easy to use. The pricing is very flexible for solo and small firms. So definitely check it out. Before we end this episode, I do want to say thank you again to the main sponsor of the show, which is Lex Reception. For a lot of the immigration attorneys that are very techy, they were at the ABA Tech Show, the American Bar Association Tech Show, and Lex Reception actually had a booth there. So hopefully folks got to check them out. So Lex Reception is a legal intake service. And that provides reception and client support for lawyers. So again, answering calls and messages in real time, 24/7, is what you get with Lex Reception. So you don't miss a client. The worst thing is when a client calls you or reaches out and they just don't hear from you because you're too busy. So Lex Reception eliminates that issue. What I appreciate about them, of course, again, is their technology. They integrate with Clio, Practice Panther, LawPay, and more. And again, $250 off for GMI Rocket Show listeners. So check them out at lexreception.com or follow the link in the show notes. So thank you to them again for supporting the show and making it possible. Thanks to everybody for checking it out. And see you next week for another episode. And in the meantime, stay safe and peace out.